Hi, this is Dr. Lara, and in this video we are going to review the characteristics of the two methods to submit data to a web server, the GET and the POST methods. Let's start by reviewing the terms request and response. When a browser accesses a web server, it sends a request, and the information sent by the server to the browser is the response. There are multiple ways in which a browser can make a request. The top three most common ways are typing the URL in the address bar, using an HTML form, and using AJAX. Let's see each of them. The most common way to make a request is by typing the web address in a browser. When you type the web address in a browser, you are doing what is called a GET request. As part of the request, the browser sends some information to the server, including the method used and the path that is trying to access. It is possible to include parameters as part of the web address when typing it directly. These parameters are also sent in the request, still using the GET method. The server uses the parameters to customize the response. For instance, pause this video and enter this URL in a browser, first without the parameters and then with them. Please try it. As you might have noticed, the server used the parameters in the URL to narrow the search and to display just videos of cats. Notice that the list of parameters is separated from the rest of the URL by a question mark. This is part of the syntax. The parameters are separated from each other by an ampersand. The names of the parameters is not arbitrary. They must match the names that the program in the web server is expecting. The list of parameters as part of the URL is known as the query string. So remember, every time you type directly a URL in a browser, with or without parameters, you are making a request using the GET method. A second common way to make a request is by using HTML forms. The data submitted in the form can use either the GET or the POST methods. The form elements must be included within the form tag. The form tag includes the action attribute. The action attribute specifies the URL of the web server. The form elements must include the name attribute. The value of the name attribute must be the same as the parameters used in the URL query string. The form can also send default hidden values. And forms should also include buttons to submit the data. Pause the video once again and type this form into a text editor and save it into your local computer and give it any name, like search.html. It has to have the HTML extension. Then open it in a web browser. You should see a form like this. Type any search term and then click on the button. What do you see? When submitting the form, you will notice that the URL includes the list of parameters in the query string. And you should also see the search term that you typed. Whenever you see the parameters in the URL after submitting a form, that means that the request used the GET method. Forms use the method attribute to specify whether the request will be done using the get or the post method. The get method is the default method used by forms, so it doesn't need to be explicitly included. Again, if the form uses the get method, that means that all of the information will be visible in the URL. However, some information shouldn't be visible, such as passwords or credit card numbers. For those situations, the post method should be used instead. The method attribute must be included in the form tag to use the post method. Try adding the post method to the form, save it, reload the web page in the browser for the changes to take effect, and submit it again. What happens? When submitting the form using the post method, the URL shouldn't have included any parameters. However, most likely you got an error because the program in the server was expecting the get method instead. An HTTP request consists of two sections, the header and the body. When submitting a form using the get method, the parameters and values are part of the header of the request. And when using the post method, the parameters are included within the body of the request. For this reason, the values must be where the program in the server is expecting them, either in the header or in the body of the request. In other words, if the program in the server is expecting the values to be in the body, but the form is submitted using the get method, then the program will not work properly. Generally speaking, the get method should be used when the data submitted to the server is not confidential, and when the goal of the form is to get information from the server or from a database. And the post method should be used when sending confidential information like passwords, credit card, social security numbers, or when the information sent is too large, when sending binary data, and also sending information to be updated or stored in the database. A third common way to submit requests is using AJAX. AJAX involves writing JavaScript code. As part of the AJAX call, it is necessary to specify the URL of the page or program you want to access. Keep in mind that not all URLs can be accessed using AJAX. Code must be explicitly added in a program to allow the use of AJAX requests. With AJAX, it is possible to get information from external sources, such as databases or web APIs, and updating a specific portion of a web page without reloading the whole page. For example, when watching a YouTube video and clicking on the like or dislike icons, an AJAX request is made to update the number of likes in the web server. This happens without refreshing the web page or interrupting playing the video. Just like HTML forms, AJAX requests can also use the get or the post methods. Alright, so let's do a quick summary of what we have covered in this video. An HTTP request is created every time the browser sends data to the web server. There are two methods to make a request, the get and the post method. When using the get method, the information is sent in the header of the request, and the information can be seen in the browser's address bar. When using the post method, the information is sent in the body of the request, and the information cannot be seen in the browser's address bar. The most common ways to make a request in a web browser are: first, by typing the URL in the address bar. This type of request will always use the GET method. The second way is using HTML forms. This type of request can use either the GET or the POST methods. The POST method should be used if the form includes sensitive or confidential information. And the third way to make a request is by using AJAX, which involves writing JavaScript code. AJAX allows connecting to external sources and updating the content of a specific part of the web page without refreshing the entire page. A request made with AJAX can also use the GET and the POST methods. All right.